The Devy Show. The Devy Show. The Devy Show. The Devy Show.
This is
The
a bad
Devy
start.
Show.
You know
The
what? We're
Devy-
just gonna go with it. Welcome to the Devy Show, where I talk about shit that I like. This is the second episode, but this is the first episode where we're talking about a specific topic because the first episode was more so just talking about who I am and why we created the podcast. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to that. But on today's show, it's gonna be the first time we're really harping on one specific topic. Ooh, that's a different word. I never really used that word, harping. But today we're gonna talk about the slow death of music. And I know it sounds very dramatic, but we'll get into it. Before we start, I want to make sure you guys are having a great day. And if you're not having a great day, then hopefully this podcast will make you feel a little bit better. You know, maybe you're cleaning the house, maybe you're getting some homework done, and you could listen to my controversially beautiful voice in the background. So first and foremost, I want to start by saying this conversation is not coming from the perspective of somebody that hates music, right? I love music and I love the creative worlds that come with it. And sometimes when we have this conversation of critiquing where music has gone, it's from the perspective of like an old boomer that's listened to the same 12 Bruce Springsteen songs for 70 years. And that's not a shot at old people or Bruce Springsteen for that matter. And he from Jersey. Matter of fact, we love Bruce Springsteen on the Devy Show. But a lot of times when we have this discussion, it comes from that perspective of that type of person. And they don't actually want to see music take a better direction, if that makes sense. They want to critique it. They want to kick on it while it's down and while it's in a bad spot. But they don't actually want to see it rise up either. So that's not my perspective. Pause on the coming, by the way. I'm also more versed in hip hop, so there's going to be more of a focus on that genre specifically. But we'll also talk about, you know, the other pop radio songs and stuff like that, because that genre of music is also in a bad space. I'm just not as educated on those topics. For example, I heard Taylor Swift's album was Dookie Butt, and I'm sorry, Taylor, I love you, but your fan base, they don't make it easy. So the main question today is, are we watching the slow death of music? Or is it really just evolving into something that we haven't seen or learned to appreciate yet? I ask this because it's easy to say like, yeah, music sucks and I only listen to music that I listened to 10 years ago. But is it really? I'm sure they were saying this in the 80s and the 90s, and obviously we ended up getting better and better music as the decades go on. I want to talk about what's happening to music and specifically how streaming and social media and the industry have changed what we listen to and why we listen to it, and what it actually means to quote unquote love music in 2025. And from the perspective of somebody that loves music, I have had a hard time enjoying these new music releases. I'm not talking specifically about the sound of the songs, even though I do feel that the quality has dipped definitely in the last couple years, but I'm mainly talking about the soul of these songs. And when I say that, I'm not saying it in the perspective of like, oh, I love that new Dax or throw on that new Tom McDonald, because that's not what the kids are listening to. But I mean it more so in terms of the biggest artists, especially in the hip hop genre, are kind of phoning it in, and they're not giving their work as much love and care as they used to, and as much love and care as to what got them to where they are now. I also know that there's always been music that sounds bad sonically, or just music that was made for the radio and didn't have any soul behind it. So this isn't necessarily a brand new thing. But I feel like every year that passes, hip hop specifically has experienced a decline. And there's also good examples on the other side too. I really enjoyed the Tyler album. I enjoyed that Clips album. And yes, I did enjoy that Cardi album.
I am the music.
But as a whole, our biggest artists, they have been phoning it in. Artists like Young Thug, artists like Drake, they have dropped terrible projects this year. And that's not just coming from the Devy Show. That is a critical acclaim. Majority of people that have listened to these albums, they agree that they've been kind of phoned in. And you could say, oh, well, go look at the underground, for example. If you really want to go listen to good music, go out and find that music. Because there have been so many great underground projects that came out this year. Nine Vicious dropped a great album, Protect, Che, an incredible Until Japan album that y'all should go check out. But I do feel that because of the type of sound that those artists have, it's very difficult to break into the mainstream. I think a lot of the underground sound is very ragey and has been like derived from a lot of Cardi type sounding beats. And that's another thing. I think producers carry a big portion of underground, so the artists specifically themselves aren't able to break into the mainstream, if that makes sense. But I also think it was easier for the Drakes and the Kendricks and the Coles to blow up the way that they did because it was so similar to the sound of the time. And that's not to take anything away from them either. It's a little too easy to say, you know, oh, you want to find good music? You need to go look for it. And it's in the underground. It's out there. Because just because some of these underground projects do well, it doesn't mean that all of the underground is good. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of the underground, it's pretty booty. And that's not to take anything away from underground artists as well. But there's a reason that they're underground. They're young. They're just starting. So a lot of it isn't polished, and a lot of it is copycat type of music, if we're being honest. It also doesn't take away from the fact that we still want these mainstream drops to be a lot better. You know, you could go to Letterboxd, for example, right? If you're into movies, you could go to Letterboxd and you could find a niche A24 movie that nobody knows about, that has a deep meaning and it's gonna blow your mind, right? But you also want those summer blockbusters, because those summer blockbusters, they create waves that you're gonna remember for the rest of your life. So I think it's a little bit of a difficult topic. Before we move on from the underground scene, I also think that a lot of labels sometimes grab these underground artists and they try to find the next Thug, or they try to find the next Cardi for this era. But that market, it's been so used up that even those artists themselves have trouble with their new albums. Like I talked about it before, I did like I Am Music, but for as highly anticipated as it was, I think it definitely could have been better itself. I think a big reason for that is because these labels and these corporations, they're focusing more on the profit over the creativity of the artist. And that's not to put all the blame on the labels either, because it's so easy to just be like, yeah, it's the corporation, and have a fist to the sky and hand to the man. But I think it's also a much easier thing for the artist to focus on their brand and their clothes and creating new drinks and stuff like that, as opposed to the music, especially if you're an already established star like a Travis Scott, for example. We're really seeing the line between influencers and musicians is getting real blurry, for real. We see some artists focus on their branding and venturing away from music, and honestly, I don't blame them, because how streaming pays artists is so little, and it discourages these deep, time-consuming projects that, you know, you put years into. Like, if you really break it down and think about it, if you're an artist in this day and age, why would you put years of your life dedicated to a thought-provoking, highly curated project when you can literally just make a TikTok sound in 3 days and get paid probably more money than you would have made making that deep, thought-provoking album? There has been a super major shift from artist-driven to algorithm-driven releases. You'll see certain artists, they'll rush to drop at specific times, like the summer, to release their projects, even if it has nothing to do with the summer, just to boost their numbers. And although there's nothing like inherently wrong with that, we get lackluster projects. Jack Boys 2. I think it used to be when artists would drop their album, they were trying to make a message or make a statement, right? We seen the Kendrick Lamars, the Tylers, the Kanye West, unfortunately. They were very good at this. Barter 6 by Thug, for example. It didn't follow formulas, and he showed that he was gonna do his own thing, right? When Drake dropped If You're Reading This, it was a surprise drop, and it didn't do this long buildup, and he was still able to do numbers and shake up the game because he was proven that he was the biggest artist in the world. And we're definitely gonna talk about that album announcement and this delay game that artists play a little bit later. I'm looking at you, Cardi. I also think we can't only blame streaming either, right? Because it's so easy to say, well, streaming has ruined music, right? Spotify has ruined music, SoundCloud has ruined music, because we've seen examples of albums become generational masterpieces even in this age. Life of Pablo was a creative masterpiece. Call Me If You Get Lost showed that people really do fuck with artistry even today. And that's not to say that it's not streaming, right? Because streaming definitely has had an effect on music. And you can easily say, well, Devy, if you really like music that much, you shouldn't have to rely on mainstream, right? Go do your homework. Go find artists that you like. And first of all, I'm literally a bored college student. I have all the times on my hands, okay? I promise you, I'm listening to those artists. But you also have to think about the fact that, yeah, you may be listening to these underground artists, right? And I may be listening to these underground artists as well. But the fact of the matter is, these people, they don't have that many streams. And if they don't have that many streams, that means it's not a reliable livelihood for them. And if they can't rely on this as their job, they're not going to put as much effort as they should into it. And a big reason that they're not making money and not getting streams is because the mainstream artists themselves aren't getting streams and making money either. There's a reason that they're putting so much focus on their branding and their swag. It's because they can't make money off of this stale music that they're making. It really is the question of, is the industry killing the art, or is the audience just consuming differently, right? Because we also see certain artists that don't care about these things, and they still put time and they still put effort into their projects, and people still won't listen. I think a lot of artists are getting so complacent, and I'm not oblivious to the fact that, you know, I'm a consumer saying this. I always hate when Instagram comments, I see them and they talk about how, oh, this athlete sucks, or they fell off while sitting from their couches. But I do think it's something that's very apparent in today's music. A lot of these top mainstream artists that we see, they're already established and they got nothing else to prove. They're already rich, they're already famous, they already got their Grammys, right? You feel me? Like Young Thug, who I absolutely love and adore, had arguably his worst album ever in a time where it really should have been his biggest. And that is not just, oh, my personal opinion. You know damn well he should not have been saying the N-word that many times. I'm just saying. But I also think that harps back a little bit on my point from before, when these artists, now that they're not putting effort and time into their albums, they're going for these moments, right? They're going for these TikTok moments. I guarantee you, when Young Thug was in the album, he was looking at his engineer and said, yo, look what I'm about to do. We're about to blow up on TikTok. And it sucks because that's not how it should be, but it is what it is, honestly, because that's how these artists are making money in the digital streaming age. Baby's album sucked. I mean, even Wayne got Celtic Shaq levels of hate, and that's really bad. It's Lil Wayne and he's getting Celtic Shaq comparisons. Are we serious? But I also don't blame the media for acting this way, because we see right through the cash grabs. It really makes you question how much the artists love the actual game, because I feel like after you already have the plaques and you already have these incredible albums and you already have all the money in the world, the only honorable reason to keep going is because this is what you love to do, right? And you want to build upon your legacy. And if not, we can see that you're just trying to make money. And I'm not pocket watching, but I'm just saying, don't be surprised when the media has this type of backlash towards you. One thing to say, hey, I'm a legacy artist and I've already dropped the greatest albums of all time and I have nothing else to prove. But if that's the case, then why are you still dropping albums? And why are you staining your legacy? And don't be surprised when the streams don't add up. Like we mentioned before, we also see these super drawn out album rollouts with no explanations, no dates given. We see so many lies with the idea that it'll build up anticipation, right? But in reality, all it does is push fan bases further away from the artist. And it's especially worse when the artist does end up dropping the album and the album doesn't live up to those expectations. And that's not to say Cardi's album sucked or anything, but it was definitely underwhelming for the wait that we had to wait for. And not to keep boing on Tyler today, but I think he does a great job with this. Instead of doing these long drawn out rollouts, he just announces it 2 weeks ahead. He builds a world for us and he gives us quality music that makes us feel something. And the more of that we have in hip hop, the better. And alongside this slow death of hip hop that we're seeing the rise of EDM music and country music. And oh my God, is that a sign of the times? We see these big music festivals like Lollapalooza or Rolling Loud or whatever that are putting way more country artists and way more EDM artists in place of these rappers that control the game for so long, because hip hop is just not in the space where it used to be. We're also seeing the death of concerts in the hip hop genre too. As we all know, the ticket prices for literally everything has gone up, and we all know why. But more specifically for hip hop, it sucks because a large chunk of these artists that we talked about before, they don't even give you a performance that's worth it. You have to give up a mortgage to go see these dudes play Spotify off of these big speakers that completely downplay the experience, and it just doesn't justify those prices. An example of this is last summer I went to a Ken Carson concert with my girlfriend, right? And as I mentioned before, I'm a college student, and as you guys know, college students aren't the most profitable, so where I put my money, it's very important to me. And instead of a great experience, even though it was a great experience, I'm not going to downplay it, but it could have been way better because all we got to see was these sweaty ass teenagers and the silhouette of Ken Carson through a hot boxed hall. It was really just loudspeakers. He barely sung into the mic. He barely jumped around. And it sucks because by doing this, you're completely alienating the people that want to engage with your music and get closer to you, and you drive away people from the genre. This obviously creates a trickle-down effect to where artists aren't getting paid as much to perform, and thus everybody in the industry is losing money. Honestly, the space just feels like like a story video game that you've already completed and you're kind of just roaming around. But it only feels like this because the best in the game aren't on their best level and they're phoning it in. You don't have to be Kendrick Lamar with this deep storytelling either. You know, you can have the party music, you can have these other types of music, but just make me feel something. And that's what we're missing in today's music. And like I mentioned before, that's not to say that there isn't still great music out there. It's just harder to find. So just keep educating yourself and keep trying to find this music until the mainstream steps up, because honestly, I think they will. I think the biggest artists on the world, they have to eventually have this chip on the shoulder. You know, there's a reason that they got to this point. You know, people are still streaming albums from the 2000s and 2010s more than drops from this year. And me personally, you know, I wouldn't take that. And you know, it could also be the idea that maybe music isn't dying. Maybe it's just changing, and maybe we have to adapt how we're listening to it. But these artists and these labels, they have to lock into. I think, to me, music should make you feel something pure. And like I said before, it doesn't have to be a political or a social message, even though we definitely do need that in today's climate. But we need music that can make us dance, cry, all the emotions. And the last year, nothing has dropped in hip hop to make people really feel that way. You can blame streaming, you can blame the climate of music today, but I do think at some point the artists themselves also have to step up. And like I said before, I think it's gonna come, but it needs to come a little bit faster. Pause. So I now move to the question: how are you guys finding and playing music, and how are you determining what's good and what's not good, right? How are you guys determining what's gonna be played at the party? Because I can definitely assure you, it is not that new Young Thug album. And maybe it is just me, right? Maybe I'm just not enjoying music that much anymore. Maybe there's a bit of nostalgia, right? Maybe there's some 13, 14-year-olds that feel like this is the best era of music, right? They feel like the Yeats and the Netspends are changing the game, and that's all credit to them. But I think if you look at music as a whole and you look at the industry as a whole and what it's done the past 5 years or so, we haven't had that many great moments. But as stated before, that's not to say that all music that's come out in the past 5 years is terrible and it'll never compare to Michael Jackson, because there has been some great moments. But I think there does come a point where music has to step up, and I do think we'll eventually reach that point. But right now, we're in a very dry era. That's what she said. I also think this is a topic that has been discussed a lot throughout the last couple years, so I don't want to harp on it too much, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents, because as a college student, that's all the money that I have. But I'm sorry, we gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for giving me your attention, and even if you weren't paying attention, thank you for just playing me in the background. We have so much more coming with this show, and I'm excited to talk about it. We got more guests, more topics, more fun on the way. So just stick with your boy and let's continue to grow. Go listen to the first episode if you haven't. Go follow Trust Devy. Go follow Ask Grab. Thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.